I tell you with absolute certainty that your inner speech, that which you tell yourself when no one else is listening, is molding your world in ways you cannot begin to imagine. These words spoken in the quiet of your mind are more powerful than any force in the visible world. They are the unseen architects of your destiny. For just 24 hours, I challenge you to become aware of your inner conversation. Listen to what you are telling yourself from moment to moment. Are you speaking of limitation? Are you rehearsing your failures? Are you constantly affirming illness, lack, or impossibility? If so, you are using the creative power of your word against yourself. Instead, for 24 hours, speak to yourself only in terms of the ideal you wish to embody. Speak from the end as though what you desire is already an accomplished fact. This is the secret of manifestation that has been veiled in mystical language throughout the ages. When you awaken in the morning, let your first thought be, I am blessed beyond measure. Everything I desire is already mine. Feel the truth of these words. Let them sink into your consciousness like rain into parched soil. Your mind is that soil, and your words are the seeds from which your future will grow. As you prepare for your day, continue this transformed inner conversation. If you desire financial abundance, do not say to yourself, I hope someday I will have enough. Instead, declare with feeling, I am now abundantly supplied. Money flows to me effortlessly from expected and unexpected sources. Do not concern yourself with the how. Your work is not to determine the means, but to establish the end in your consciousness. If you seek improved health, cease speaking of your body in terms of its limitations or ailments. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as though you are vibrantly healthy. I am filled with energy. My body is strong, resilient, and functions in perfect harmony. The creative power within you doesn't analyze whether your statements align with physical evidence. It simply accepts what you decree and proceeds to bring it into manifestation. In your relationships, transform how you speak to yourself about others. If there is someone with whom you experience conflict, change your inner conversation about them. Instead of rehearsing grievances, speak to yourself of that person as though they already embody the qualities you wish to experience. They are thoughtful and understanding. Our communication is clear and harmonious. Remember, the outer conversation merely reflects what has already been established in your inner conversation. In your career or vocation, speak to yourself as though you already occupy the position you desire, possess the skills you seek, or have achieved the recognition you yearn for. I am excelling in my work. My contributions are valued and rewarded. I am fulfilling my purpose through my daily activities. Now, I must emphasize that this is not positive thinking as it is commonly understood. This is far more profound. You are not trying to convince yourself of something against evidence. Rather, you are exercising your divine prerogative to choose the consciousness from which you operate. You are selecting the state of being from which your reality will unfold. Your consciousness is the only reality. The world you experience is simply consciousness objectified. Change your consciousness, your inner talking, and you must change your world. This is law. For 24 hours, refuse to speak to yourself of problems. There are no problems apart from your conviction that they exist. What appears as a problem is merely a situation awaiting your new conception of it. Speak to yourself from the consciousness of the solution already achieved and watch as the so-called problem dissolves before your eyes. I recall a woman who attended my lecture some years ago. She had been struggling with chronic illness for nearly a decade. After hearing these principles, she decided to change her inner conversation for just one day. Instead of her habitual thoughts of I am sick, I will never recover, no treatment shame, she began to speak to herself as though she were already whole. I am perfectly well. My body knows how to heal itself. I am stronger each day. She reported that by midday she experienced a noticeable shift in her energy. By evening, symptoms that had plagued her for years had diminished significantly. Within a week of maintaining this new inner conversation, she was able to resume activities she had abandoned years before. Her physicians were baffled, but she understood the principle at work. She had changed her inner world, and thus her outer world reflected this change. Another gentleman used this practice to transform his financial situation. For years he had spoken to himself as a person of limited means, constantly affirming, "I can't afford that. I never have enough. Money is hard to come by." For 24 hours, he disciplined himself to speak as a wealthy man would speak. "I am financially free. I am wonderfully wealthy. I can afford anything that truly matters to me." He shared with me that on that very day, he received an unexpected check in the mail, a refund from an overpayment he had made years earlier and had completely forgotten about. More significantly, opportunities began to present themselves in the following weeks that allowed him to increase his income substantially. The change in his circumstances directly reflected the change in his inner conversation. Let me clarify something of vital importance. When I speak of your inner conversation, I am not referring merely to affirmations repeated mechanically. I am speaking of that constant stream of thoughts, that mental chatter that accompanies you throughout your day. This is the word that was in the beginning of all creation in your world. For this practice to transform your life, your new inner conversation must be felt. It must be imbued with the emotion of already being and having what you desire. Feeling is the secret, the very fuel of manifestation. Your feeling is your faith, your conviction, and it is according to your faith that it is done in you. As you move through this 24-hour period, you will likely notice your old patterns of speech attempting to reassert themselves. This is natural. Do not fight them or condemn yourself when this happens. Simply notice them and gently but firmly replace them with your new chosen conversation. Remember, you are breaking a lifetime habit of speaking to yourself from the standpoint of limitation. Be patient with yourself, but be persistent. Each time you catch yourself speaking the old language, it is a victory, for you have become aware. And awareness is the first step to transformation. Throughout this 24 hours, pay particular attention to how you speak to yourself when faced with unexpected situations. It is in these moments that we most readily revert to habitual patterns. If something occurs that would normally trigger anxiety or frustration, pause before allowing your inner conversation to fall into familiar ruts. Then deliberately choose words that affirm your ideal, not your fears. For instance, if you find yourself stuck in traffic when you're already running late, resist the temptation to say to yourself, "This always happens to me. Nothing ever works out. I'm going to be in trouble." Instead, speak to yourself as one for whom all things work together for good. This delay serves a perfect purpose. I am exactly where I need to be. All is well, and all manner of things are well. The power of speaking to yourself in this transformed way for 24 hours is that it interrupts the momentum of all thought patterns. It creates a new groove, a new pathway in consciousness that, once established, becomes easier to travel. One day of vigilance can create a shift that alters the trajectory of your life. I want to address a question that may have arisen in your mind. Is this not self-deception? Am I not lying to myself when I speak as though I have what physical evidence clearly shows I do not have? This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of reality. The physical world you perceive is not the cause. It is the effect. It is not the beginning. It is the end result of consciousness. When you speak to yourself from the state of having your desire fulfilled, you are not lying, you are creating. You are exercising the same power that has created everything from invisible thought to visible form. In Scripture, we are told that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Your new inner conversation is that substance, that evidence in the unseen realm of cause. It precedes the manifestation in the visible world of effects. Speaking to yourself from the consciousness of already being or having what you desire is not self-deception. It is the highest form of truth, for it acknowledges the creative principle of the universe. For these 24 hours, I urge you to adopt the mindset that your word is law. What you decree in the privacy of your mind must come to pass in your outer experience. This is not arrogance or magical thinking. It is simply acknowledging the creative principle that operates through all of us. I am is the self-definition of the infinite. When you say I am, you are invoking the creative power of the universe. Be exceedingly careful then what you attach to this powerful phrase. For 24 hours, use I am only to define yourself in terms of what you wish to be, do, and have. Instead of I am tired, say I'm energized. Rather than I am worried, declare I am confident all is working out perfectly. In place of I am stuck, affirm I am continuously moving forward toward my goals. Now, a practical suggestion for implementing this 24-hour experiment. Begin by writing down some of the habitual phrases you catch yourself saying internally. Next to each one, write a new phrase that reflects your desired state. Keep this list with you as a reference throughout the day. For example, old, I never have enough time. New, I have all the time I need to accomplish what truly matters. Old, why does this always happen to me? New, everything that happens serves my highest good. Old, I'm not good at handling money. New, I am a wise and prosperous steward of abundance. Old, no one appreciates what I do. New, my contributions are recognized and valued by others. As you engage in this practice, you may discover that certain areas of your life are more challenging than others when it comes to transforming your inner conversation. Pay special attention to these areas, for they often hold the key to your greatest transformation. The resistance you feel is merely the old concept of yourself fighting for survival. Some of you may be wondering how this practice relates to your interactions with others. After all, we don't live in isolation. We are constantly engaged in outer conversation as well. Here is a profound truth. Your outer conversations with others are actually reflections of your habitual inner conversations. When you change how you speak to yourself about others and your relationship to them, you will naturally find your outer conversations transforming as well. You need make no direct effort to change how you speak to others. As your inner conversation shifts, your outer expression will align itself accordingly. For 24 hours, speak to yourself about others as though they already embody the qualities you wish to experience from them. If you have a supervisor you find difficult, rather than internally rehearsing their faults, speak to yourself of them as understanding, supportive, and appreciative. If you have a child who is struggling, speak to yourself of them as confident, capable, and thriving. Do not be concerned if you do not yet believe what you are saying to yourself. Remember, you are not reporting what is. You are creating what will be. Your faithfulness to your new inner conversation, despite all evidence to the contrary, is the measure of your faith. And again, it is done unto you according to your faith. I want to emphasize a point that many miss when first encountering this principle. The power lies not in the words themselves, but in the consciousness from which they spring. Words are merely the vessels that carry your consciousness. Speak to yourself not just with new words, but from a new state of being. This requires the use of your imagination, the greatest creative power you possess. As you speak these new words to yourself, see yourself as the person who would naturally think such thoughts. Feel what that person would feel. Move through your day with the attitude and bearing of one for whom these words are the natural expression of their being. For 24 hours, live from the assumption that what you desire is already yours. This is what it means to pray without ceasing. Not to beseech an external deity, but to maintain an inner conversation that aligns with your desires already fulfilled. I recall a young man who applied this principle to transform his career. He had been in the same position for years, passed over repeatedly for promotion. His inner conversation was filled with resentment and defeat. They don't value me. I'm stuck here forever. Others get the opportunities I deserve. For 24 hours, he disciplined himself to speak to himself as though he were already in the position he desired. I am an invaluable asset to this company. My contributions are recognized and rewarded. I serve in a capacity that utilizes my full potential. Within days, he was called into his supervisor's office and informed of a restructuring that created a new position one that perfectly matched his skills and offered significantly more responsibility and compensation. What had changed? Not the external circumstances, but his inner conversation about those circumstances. As you move through these 24 hours, you may find yourself wondering how to handle thoughts about the past. Many of us have habitual inner conversations that revisit past disappointments, failures, or hurts. For this period, I urge you to speak to yourself about your past in a new way. Instead of interpreting past events as limitations or justifications for current conditions, speak of them as the perfect preparation for your current good fortune. Everything in my past has equipped me for the abundance I now experience. Every challenge has strengthened me. Every setback has redirected me to something better. This is not denying or suppressing painful experiences. It is reinterpreting them from a higher perspective. It is recognizing that consciousness is the only reality, and you are free at any moment to choose the consciousness from which you view your life. Let me share another dimension of this practice that many find transformative. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as if you are God speaking to you. For indeed, your I am is God individualized. When you say I am blessed, it is God declaring blessing through you. When you say I am strong, it is God expressing strength as you. This understanding removes any sense of untruth or pretense from your new inner conversation. You are not fabricating a reality. You are allowing the highest truth to express through you. You are claiming your divine inheritance as a creative being made in the image of the Creator. As this 24-hour period progresses, you may begin to notice subtle shifts in your external world. People may respond to you differently. Opportunities may present themselves unexpectedly. Solutions to long-standing problems may suddenly become clear. These are the first fruits of your transformed inner conversation. Do not, however, become preoccupied with looking for results. Your work is to maintain your new inner conversation regardless of appearances. The manifestation follows the inner word. It does not precede it. Keep your focus on being faithful to your new way of speaking to yourself, and let the outer pictures rearrange themselves in their own time and manner. I must address a question that often arises. What if I maintain this new inner conversation for 24 hours and nothing changes? My answer is simple. Something has changed. You have changed. You have interrupted patterns of thought that may have dominated your consciousness for decades. You have proven to yourself that you can choose your inner conversation rather than being at its mercy. Moreover, manifestation does not always occur instantaneously in the visible world. Some seeds sprout quickly. Others require more time. But all seeds, when planted in fertile soil and given the proper conditions, must grow. It is law. Your word, planted in the soil of consciousness and watered with faith, must produce after its kind. If at the end of 24 hours you do not see the complete manifestation of your desire, do not be discouraged. Instead, be encouraged that you have begun a new pattern that, if maintained, must produce the conditions that correspond to it. Consider extending your commitment for another 24 hours and then another. Many who have practiced this principle find that 24 hours of vigilant attention to their inner conversation creates a momentum, makes the second one that's 20 easier and the third easier still. What begins as an exercise becomes a natural way of being. For these 24 hours, I urge you to be especially attentive to the feeling that accompanies your inner conversation. Words without feeling are empty shells. It is the emotion that gives them life and power. As you speak to yourself in this new way, cultivate the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of already being who you wish to be and having what you desire to have. Gratitude is a powerful catalyst in this process. When you speak to yourself with gratitude for what is not yet visible to the senses, you affirm your faith in the reality of your inner world over the temporary conditions of the outer. I am so grateful for my perfect health carries infinitely more creative power than I want to be healthy, or even I will be healthy. Throughout these 24 hours, you may encounter situations that seem to contradict your new inner conversation. A bill may arrive when you are affirming abundance. A physical symptom may intensify when you are speaking of perfect health. A relationship may appear to worsen when you are declaring harmony. In these moments, your commitment will be tested. The evidence of your senses will argue persuasively against your new internal dialogue. This is when you must stand firm in the knowledge that what you are observing externally is the outpicturing of past conversations, not the reality of the present moment. Speak to yourself as though what you are observing has no power to persist in the face of your new consciousness. This appearance is merely the shadow of former thinking. It has no substance or permanence. What I am now declaring within myself is the new reality that must replace it. Remember that creation is finished. All possible states exist now. You are not creating something new. You are selecting through your inner conversation which completed state you will occupy. When you understand this truth, you realize there is no waiting for your good to be created or to arrive from somewhere else. It exists now. And your inner conversation is the method by which you move into that state. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as one who dwells in the state of wish fulfilled. Speak with the quiet confidence of one who knows rather than the desperate longing of one who wishes. There is a world of difference between saying I want to be successful and I am successful. The first speaks from lack. The second speaks from fulfillment. As we continue this exploration of the power of your inner conversation, I want to address the matter of persistence. Some desires manifest quickly with a change in your inner dialogue. Others require more sustained attention. Do not be discouraged if, after 24 hours, you do not see the complete manifestation of your desire in the outer world. The seed has been planted and nothing can prevent its growth except your return to the old conversation. Just as a farmer does not dig up his seed each day to check on its progress. Do not dig up your way reverting to the old patterns of speech that created the conditions you wish to change. There is a perfect timing to all manifestation that your conscious mind may not comprehend. Trust the process. Maintain your new inner conversation beyond these initial 24 hours and watch as the universe rearranges itself to embody your new concept of yourself. I recall a woman who applied this principle to transform her experience of chronic pain. For years, her inner conversation had been dominated by statements like, my pain is unbearable. Nothing helps. I'll always suffer. For 24 hours, she disciplined herself to speak to herself differently. My body knows how to heal itself. I am comfortable and at ease. Every day I feel better than the day before. She reported that by the end of the 24 hours, she had experienced brief periods of complete relief for the first time in years. As she continued this new inner conversation in the days that followed, these periods of relief grew longer and more frequent until, within weeks, the pain that had dominated her life for a decade was only an occasional minor discomfort. What changed? Not her physical condition initially, but her consciousness about that condition. As consciousness shifted, the body, which is only an obedient servant to consciousness, gradually conformed to the new assumption. As you engage in this 24-hour experiment, you are literally rewiring your brain. Neuroscience confirms what spiritual masters have taught for millennia, that focused attention changes the physical structure of the brain. When you persistently speak to yourself in a new way, you are creating new neural pathways that, with repetition, become the path of least resistance for your thoughts. This understanding should encourage you to persist beyond the initial 24 hours. What begins as a conscious exercise becomes, with practice, your natural way of thinking. The new inner conversation, at first maintained with effort, eventually becomes automatic, just as your old limiting conversations once were. For these 24 hours, I urge you to be especially vigilant during the drowsy states of consciousness, the moments just before sleep and just upon awakening. These twilight states provide direct access to the subconscious mind, which is the creative power that brings your assumptions into experience. As you drift off to sleep, speak to yourself as though your desire is already fulfilled. Let this be the last conversation you have before entering the sleep state. Similarly, in those first moments of awakening, before the analytical mind fully engages, re-establish this same inner conversation. These marginal states of consciousness are incredibly fertile for planting the seeds of your new reality. What is impressed upon the subconscious during these states takes root deeply and manifests with remarkable speed and fidelity. Throughout this 24-hour period, you may notice that certain phrases or thoughts have more emotional impact than others. Pay attention to these. They often indicate key states of consciousness that, when shifted, create the most significant changes in your outer experience. For example, you may find that speaking to yourself as financially secure produces a stronger emotional response than speaking of yourself as physically energetic. This would suggest that your consciousness about finances has been a more dominant limiting factor than your consciousness about health. Focus additional attention on maintaining your new conversation in these emotionally charged areas. I want to address something that often confuses those new to this practice. You may wonder, should I speak to myself about specific manifestations or about general states of being? The answer is both in proper proportion. Your inner conversation should include specific statements that reflect your desires. My income is now $10,000 per month, or I live in my beautiful dream home by the ocean. But these should be balanced with statements about the state of consciousness that would naturally include these manifestations. I am abundantly supplied, or I dwell in perfect environments that reflect my inner harmony. The specific statements give direction to your creative energy. The general statements establish the consciousness from which all related manifestations can naturally flow. Both are valuable components of your transformed inner conversation. As you move through this 24-hour period, you may encounter people who seem determined to pull you back into old patterns of thinking and speaking. They may focus on problems, limitations, or negative possibilities. In these interactions, maintain your new inner conversation with even greater vigilance. While they speak of what is wrong or impossible, speak to yourself of what is right and very possible. While they focus on lack, speak to yourself of abundance. Do not argue or try to convert them. Simply maintain your position in consciousness regardless of their influence. Remember, everyone in your life is a reflection of some aspect of your consciousness. As you transform your inner conversation, you will gradually find that others either change how they interact with you or disappear from your experience to be replaced by those who resonate with your new state of being. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as though you are the source of all your experience rather than the victim of it. This is not about assuming blame, but claiming power. I draw to myself perfect circumstances. I am the attractor of my experience. Everything in my world reflects my consciousness. This understanding liberates you from feeling at the mercy of people and conditions. It places the creative power where it belongs, within your own consciousness, expressed through your inner conversation. As this 24-hour experiment unfolds, pay attention to how your outer speech begins to align with your new inner conversation. You may find yourself spontaneously speaking words to others that reflect your transformed consciousness. This is a sign that your new way of thinking is taking root deeply. Do not force this alignment. Let it unfold naturally. Your work is with your inner conversation only. As that shifts, your outer expression will follow suit without conscious effort on your part. I want to share one more powerful dimension of this practice. For 24 hours, when speaking to yourself about desired states or manifestations, use the phrase, "Isn't it wonderful?" as a prefix. Isn't it wonderful that I am now in perfect health? Isn't it wonderful that my relationships are harmonious and fulfilling? Isn't it wonderful that abundance flows to me effortlessly? This phrase evokes the feeling of pleasant surprise and gratitude that accompanies the manifestation of a desire. It bridges the gap between your present awareness and the consciousness of having what you seek. It imbues your inner conversation with the emotional tone that accelerates manifestation. As we approach the conclusion of this exploration, I remind you that this 24-hour practice is not merely a technique for getting what it is, an introduction to a new way of being in the world. It is an invitation to live consciously from the creative center of your being, rather than reactively from the circumference of conditions. The transformation of your inner conversation is the transformation of your life. What you habitually say to yourself determines what you will experience. Choose your words as though they are seeds from which your future will grow, because they are precisely that. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as the person you aspire to be. Feel what that person would feel. Think what they would think. Move through your day with the quiet confidence of one who knows that their word is law in their universe. Then watch as your outer world begins its faithful reflection of this new inner reality. For the outer must conform to the inner, it has no choice. This is the immutable law of consciousness. I leave you with this challenge and this promise: give 24 hours to the vigilant observation and transformation of your inner conversation, and you will take the first step toward a completely new experience of life. The world you will begin to encounter will bear the unmistakable imprint of your transformed consciousness. And as you discover the creative power of your inner word, you will understand the true meaning of that ancient statement. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For you will know from your own experience that your word, your inner conversation, is indeed the beginning of all that appears in your world.